$368 billion. 3 allies, 1 rising superpower. That's the scale of what might be the most expensive defense project in modern history. A plan led by the United Kingdom, the United States, and Australia, aimed not at starting a war, but at making sure one never begins. It's called AUKUS, a defense pact built to help maintain stability in the Indo-Pacific as China's regional influence continues to grow. And in 2025, it just got a political jolt. Newly re-elected US President Donald Trump publicly reaffirmed America's commitment to it. This isn't headline drama, it's long-term strategy. Real money, real submarines, and a clear signal across the Pacific. Deterrence, not confrontation. So what exactly is this $368 billion plan, and how did it become the backbone of Western power in Asia? Let's dive in. AUKUS began in 2021 as a trilateral pact between Washington, London, and Canberra. Its core idea, Australia would acquire nuclear-powered submarines with help from the UK and the US. To be clear, these boats are not nuclear armed. They're powered by nuclear reactors but carry conventional weapons. That propulsion system lets them stay submerged for months, nearly invisible to radar or sonar. According to Australia's official fact sheets, the overall program is valued at about 368 billion Australian dollars, roughly 245 billion US dollars, spread over 30 years. That includes infrastructure, training, and industrial development across all 3 nations. The pact has 2 main pillars. One is the submarine capability, the second covers advanced technologies such as cyber, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and undersea systems. Defense analysts from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute describe AUKUS as a project of strategic endurance, giving allies the reach and stealth needed to patrol one of the world's most contested regions. For Australia, it's not just new submarines. It's a path to long-term strategic relevance. Fast forward to October 2025. After returning to office, President Donald Trump ordered a formal review of AUKUS to ensure it aligned with his America First agenda. Despite concerns in some quarters, the review concluded without major changes. The U.S. reaffirmed its plan to transfer Virginia-class submarines to Australia and to keep industrial cooperation on schedule. Following a White House meeting with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, Trump called AUKUS a deterrent, not a provocation. Reports also mentioned additional resource cooperation discussions on critical minerals and supply chain security, but no publicly verified figure has been released. These talks remain unconfirmed in detail. The takeaway is straightforward. Despite Washington's political shifts, AUKUS has remained intact and continues to advance. $368 billion doesn't just vanish into the ocean. It flows through shipyards, training centers, and supply chains. Australia has begun contributing funds toward US and UK yard upgrades, consistent with AUKUS's long-term production plan. Defense Minister Pat Conroy confirmed that these early investments support infrastructure expansion and workforce training crucial for future submarine construction. In the UK, for example, the Barrow-in-Furness shipyard is expected to benefit significantly. British government sources estimate the UK-Australia cooperation will support over 21,000 UK jobs and up to £20 billion in exports. This isn't just defense spending, it's industrial cooperation on a massive scale. AUKUS has effectively linked the economies and defense sectors of 3 major allies. As one British analyst joked, it's the first time in decades the UK, US, and Australia are building the same submarine and actually agreeing on the blueprints. In July 2025, the UK and Australia signed a 50-year defense framework under the AUKUS umbrella. It provides a long-term basis for collaboration on submarine design, construction, and sustainment. This agreement sets the groundwork for joint submarine work and includes provisions for a rotational presence of US and UK nuclear-powered submarines in Western Australia near HMAS Stirling, expected to begin later this decade. For London, it represents a strategic re-engagement in the Indo-Pacific without the overstretch of permanent bases. A defense scholar observed that AUKUS allows Britain to project influence through partnerships rather than possessions. While earlier speculation referred to a so-called Geelong Treaty, there is no official document by that name. The existing 50-year defense framework is the verified agreement in place. If you want to understand AUKUS, don't just look at submarines, look at the shipyards. Across Australian cities like Perth and Adelaide, large sums are being invested in new assembly halls, maintenance facilities, and naval support hubs. These aren't one-off projects, they're the foundation for a long-term defense industry. In the United States, production lines for the Virginia-class submarines are being expanded to include Australian orders. In the UK, work is already underway on the next-generation SSN AUKUS submarine, a joint UK-Australia build incorporating US submarine technology. Economists call this defense industrial integration. It means the three nations share production networks so closely that cooperation becomes self-reinforcing. As one Australian commentator noted, if one shipyard slows down, three economies feel it, and that's the point. This industrial dimension makes the project not only a defense commitment, but an economic one spanning generations. At its core, AUKUS is about deterrence. President Trump emphasized that the pact is meant to prevent conflict, not start one. Chinese officials, however, have voiced concern, calling it an encirclement strategy, an interpretation Western governments deny. What AUKUS gives Australia is greater strategic depth, nuclear-powered submarines that can operate for long periods across thousands of kilometers, from the South China Sea to the Indian Ocean. Analysts note this capability could influence military planning in the region by complicating potential adversaries' calculations. However, analysts also warn of a deterrence gap, the time lag before these submarines enter service, during which Australia must rely on existing capabilities. The Australian Strategic Policy Institute suggests Canberra will need to develop interim strategies and partnerships. So when commentators describe AUKUS as a plan to scare China, that phrase is best understood as shorthand for deterrence, signaling capability and preparedness rather than aggression. But every grand plan comes with challenges, and AUKUS is no exception. One major hurdle is workforce readiness. Australia will need thousands of trained submariners, nuclear engineers, and shipbuilders. Training and certification for nuclear-qualified personnel can take well over a decade. Another concern is technology and budget risk. The UK's Strategic Defence Review has warned that building nuclear reactor cores for the SSN AUKUS program may prove difficult to deliver on schedule. There's also growing debate among defense experts about future detectability. Emerging quantum sensors, seabed magnetometers, and AI-based surveillance may, over time, reduce traditional submarine stealth. These assessments remain speculative, but are being closely studied by navies worldwide. In short, the ambition is huge, the cost massive, and the timeline long, meaning AUKUS is as much a test of endurance as of engineering. Looking ahead, Australia is expected to acquire 3 Virginia-class submarines in the early 2030s, then transition to SSN AUKUS boats built jointly with the UK in the 2040s. These submarines are projected to serve into the 2080s, making AUKUS a generational enterprise. Meanwhile, several nations, including Japan, Canada, and South Korea, have expressed interest in limited cooperation on AUKUS's Pillar 2 technology projects such as AI and undersea systems. None, however, are formal partners as of late 2025. Strategically, AUKUS has already reshaped allied planning and industrial links. Economically, it's creating thousands of jobs. Politically, it reflects a shared goal of maintaining stability in a changing Indo-Pacific. 3 allies, 1 ocean, $368 billion committed to keeping the peace.